Arthur Dimmesdale, the beloved Puritan minister in Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter, is one of the most psychologically complex characters in American literature. His internal struggle between his public image and private guilt drives much of the novel's emotional and moral tension. As a symbol of both human weakness and spiritual aspiration, Dimmesdale embodies the destructive consequences of hidden sin and the transformative potential of confession and redemption. Through Dimmesdale, Hawthorne explores themes of guilt, hypocrisy, the human conscience, and the struggle between individual truth and societal expectation. Role in the narrative. In the structure of the novel, Dimmesdale plays a central role as the secret father of Pearl and Hester Prynne's fellow sinner. However, unlike Hester, who bears the scarlet letter and endures public shame, Dimmesdale hides his guilt, maintaining his reputation as a holy man. This contrast forms one of the core tensions of the novel: public punishment versus private remorse. Dimmesdale's conflict drives much of the plot. His growing illness and self-inflicted suffering mirror the toll that his concealed sin takes on his mind and body. His sermons become more powerful, precisely because they are infused with the authentic anguish of a man who knows his flaws. Ironically, the more he suffers in secret, the more his congregation reveres him. Dimmesdale also plays a pivotal role in the novel's climax. His public confession on the scaffold is the moment when private guilt becomes public truth. This act of courage not only brings him spiritual release, but also enables Pearl's symbolic transformation and Hester's potential reintegration into society. Thus, Dimmesdale's journey is central to the novel's moral resolution. Symbolic significance. Dimmesdale is much more than a character. He is a symbol of internalized guilt and the moral complexities of sin in a rigid theocratic society. Where Hester wears her sin openly through the scarlet letter, Dimmesdale wears his within. Hawthorne uses Dimmesdale to explore how concealed guilt corrupts the soul. His inner torment is so great that it manifests in physical illness, emotional instability, and masochistic behavior, such as nightly vigils and scourging. Dimmesdale's suffering reveals that private guilt can be even more devastating than public shame. Hawthorne presents Dimmesdale as a warning. When one cannot reconcile their internal truth with their outward identity, the result is spiritual disintegration. Dimmesdale's hypocrisy, preaching virtue while hiding vice, makes him a tragic figure rather than a villain. His suffering is genuine, and his desire for repentance is real, but his fear of losing social esteem delays his confession until the final moments of his life. Dimmesdale also symbolizes the dual nature of humanity, the spiritual and the carnal, the public and the private. His community reveres him for his piety, yet he is deeply flawed. This contradiction makes him painfully human. Hawthorne's depiction of Dimmesdale invites readers to consider how often people present themselves as morally pure while grappling with private transgressions. This duality is most powerfully illustrated in Dimmesdale's nighttime visit to the scaffold, where he stands in the same place as Hester once did, but under the cover of darkness. He seeks atonement, but cannot yet face the consequences. It is only in the final act, when he confesses openly in the daylight, that his soul is released. Broader implications. Hawthorne's character, Dimmesdale, has broader implications for religion, morality, and societal norms. Hawthorne uses him to critique the dangers of religious hypocrisy and to question the efficacy of a legalistic, punitive approach to sin. Dimmesdale's suffering reflects the psychological consequences of Puritan ideology, which demands absolute moral purity and offers little room for compassion or human error. The Puritan society values appearances and harsh punishment, which leads Dimmesdale to hide his sin rather than seek communal forgiveness. Hawthorne suggests that such a society creates an environment where hypocrisy thrives. Dimmesdale's inability to confess is not simply a personal failure, but a reflection of a culture that prioritizes public reputation over inner truth. The clergy, expected to be paragons of virtue, are not allowed the space to be flawed, and thus the gap between image and reality grows dangerously wide. Dimmesdale's character explores the nature of guilt and its moral implications. Hawthorne is less interested in condemning Dimmesdale for his sin than in examining how he deals with it. Rather than being a cautionary tale about moral failure, Dimmesdale's story becomes a meditation on the importance of acknowledging one's truth, even if the consequences are painful. Dimmesdale's final confession is one of the most significant moments in the novel. On the scaffold, he not only acknowledges his sin, but also claims Pearl as his daughter. In doing so, he reclaims his humanity and achieves a form of spiritual peace. His death following this act of truth is not a punishment, but a kind of release, a redemption that allows him to escape the torment of guilt. Conclusion. Arthur Dimmesdale is one of the most tragic and richly drawn characters in the Scarlet Letter. His internal conflict between private guilt and public virtue, between cowardice and courage, represents the central moral drama of the novel. Through Dimmesdale, Hawthorne critiques the hypocrisy of religious institutions, explores the psychological toll of concealed sin, and ultimately suggests that truth, however painful, is the path to redemption. In the end, Dimmesdale stands as a universal symbol of human fallibility, the complexity of moral choice, and the transformative power of honesty. His story continues to resonate because it reflects a timeless truth, that the path to grace is paved not with perfection, but with the courage to be known.